Size 221, multiplying and dividing surds. So the rules are the square root of a times the square root of b is the square root of a times b, or just ab. If you've got a root b times c root d, don't we just multiply the whole number parts out the front? So that would be a times c times the square root of b times d. We know that the square root of a times the square root of a, we did this one yesterday I think, is the square root of a squared, which is just a. And for division, we know that the square root of a over the square root of b, you can do it in one step, is the square root of a over b. Or if you've got this a root b over c root d, you can do your a divided by c, divide your whole numbers and divide your surd bits. But you can do them, if the b divides by d nicely and gives you a square number, you can do that first. But if it doesn't divide nicely, you can do square root of b over square root of d. Alright, so these are your rules for division in that box and your rules for multiplication in the top box. Question 20, multiplying. So you just multiply the whole number bits. What have we got? 2 times, well, a negative times a positive is a positive. 2 times 3, 6 times 5, 30. So it's positive 30. And the square root bits you have to multiply. What's, actually we can do this in instead of multiplying them all. What's the square root of 5 times the square root of 5? So I'd go times 5 times the square root of 2. I mean, you can go the square root of 50, but then you've got to go back and write square root of 25 times square root of 2. So if you want, are you okay with that? Because root 5 times root 5 is 5. Square root of 2 is 2. So we're doing the whole number bits first. Because I had square root of 5 times square root of 5 is 5, why do I write square root of 25? No need to, but I've still got the square root of 2. So that is 150 root 2. Okay, this one here, be careful. What's 4 over 8? A half. Now, I want to put these two under the one sign. I know it's not going to be a simplified surd, but how do you simplify the fraction 2/10? 1/5. So it's going to be 1/2 square root of 1 over square root of 5. Now, you wouldn't write it like that. What's the square root of 1? 1. So my numerator is 1 over, what's my denominator? I've got a normal 2 and root 5. Because remember, the square root of 1 over 5 is the square root of 1 over the square root of 5, and the square root of 1 is 1 because 1 times 1 is 1. Okay? All right, the next one. Similar sort of thing. 15 divided by 6 you can't do, but you can, it's a half, and put your 15 over 6 together, and 15 over 6, just simplifying it like a fraction like you would in year 7, you divide them both by 3. So you get a half times, what have I got? Divide them both by 3, what have I got? 5 over 2. So this is the square root of 5 over 2 root 2. Oops, are you okay with that? All right, now a lot of the others will be simpler than that you would do. Okay. And I'll stick another one in too. I'll do question 16 as well. All right. Root 5 over 7 squared. What's the answer? Good. And the next one, 2 root 7 squared. That's 2 root 7 times 2 root 7. It's 2 squared times root 7 squared. We okay with that? Which is just 4 times 7, which is 28. All right. 0.22, expanding brackets. The rules are the same. The square root of a bracket times square root of b plus c. The term outside times the first term, the term outside times the second one. And of course, you've got to put your plus or minus. Expanding binomial products, the same. The root a times root c, root a times root d, etc. All right. Perfect square, same rule, but be careful. Isn't that the square root of a all squared plus 2 root a times root b plus the square root of b squared, which is going to be a plus See, because the square root of a squared is a, plus 2 times root ab plus b. And the same thing with the perfect square with a minus. The square root of a minus square root of b squared, you don't learn the rules, you just do the expansion as you see it, is the square root of a squared. Remember, it's minus 2 times that, so it's minus 2 times root a times root b, plus the square root of b squared, which is just as the first one. Square root of a squared is a, minus 2 root ab plus b. And we've also got difference of two squares. Square root of a times square root of b times the square root of a minus the square root of b. A plus b, a minus b. Isn't this the first term squared minus the second term squared? Which is a minus b. Just a straight expansion. A negative times a negative, what do we get? Positive. So it's 21 root 100. Oh, that worked out well. And a negative times a positive is minus 14 root 15. So square root of 100 is 10. So it's 21 times 10 minus square root of 15. You can't simplify. None of the factors are squared numbers. So it's just 210 minus 14 root 15. The next one, just your normal FOIL method. First outside, inside, last. 2 root 5 times root 5. What's that going to be? 2 times 5. The next one's a minus. 2 times 3 is 6. What have we got? Root 5 times root 2 is root 10. The next one, a negative times a positive is a negative. 7 for the whole number bits. Root 2 times root 5 is root 10. And the last terms multiplied by each other, what have we got? A negative times a negative is a, so it's plus 7 times 3 is 21 root, or not root. What's root 2 times root 2? 2, so it's 21 times 2. So we've got 10 minus 6 root 10 minus 7 root 10 is minus what? Minus 13 root 10 plus 21 times 2 is 42. So it's 52 minus 13 root 10. Keep going. All right. Is the whole thing going to be okay? Oops, sorry. Okay, what's the next one? A plus B, A minus B. They're identical, which is just A squared minus whatever B is squared. It's okay to write it out. I wouldn't write the answer straight away. See, you've got to say to yourself A plus B, A minus B, A squared minus, and I put this in brackets because you don't want to not square the 9 or forget to square the root 3. So what's this? What's root 2 squared? 2 minus 9 squared is 81 and root 3 squared is 3. Be careful. So it's 2 minus 81 times 3, 243, negative 241. Next one is of the format A minus B all squared. Rule is equals A squared, so 2 root 8 squared minus 2 times that times that. So 2 times, if you want, you can multiply your 2 and 3 straight away. Or do you want to write them out? Because you can just write 2 times 6 root 40. Because it's 2 times 2 root 8, don't worry, times 3 root 5. I'll put that in brackets. Plus the last term squared is 3 root 5 squared. Which is, 2 squared is 4, root 8 squared is 8, so that's going to be 4 times 8 minus, multiplying your whole numbers, you've got 4 times 3 is 12, root 8 times root 5, you know, I'd probably, that's root 40. Oh no, leave it as root 40 if you want, because we're going to simplify that now. Or do you want to, if you want, actually, why don't you change your square root of 8 into the square root of 4 times the square root of 2? So times 2, be careful with the 2, no, sorry, no more 2. We've multiplied the whole numbers. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. I've got root 8 times root 5, which is root 40. I mean, you can write that as root 4 times root 10. Or you can write the root 8 as root 4 times root 2 times root 5. I don't mind how you do it. What do you want to do? Do you want root 40? We can do root 40 to start with. Plus, what's the last term? 3 squared is 9. Root 5 squared is 5. So I've got, what have we got? 32 and 45. What's that? 77. Minus 12 times root 40 is root 4 times root 10. And we've got 77 minus 12 times 2. 24 root 10. Just got to be careful that you don't mess up this middle bit. Lose one of the 2's or something like that. And the last one, first term, this is of the format a plus b squared. So it's 3 root 5 squared plus 2 times 3 root 5 times 2 root 2 plus the last term squared, 2 root 2 squared. So 3 squared is 9, root 5 squared is 5, plus multiplying your whole numbers, you've got 6 times 2 is 12. Multiplying your surd bits, you've got root 5 times root 2 is root 10, plus the last term, 2 squared is 4, and root 2 squared is 2. So we've got 45 plus 8, which is 53, plus 12 root 10. Equal sort of question. Evaluate a and b if 7 root 2 minus 3 squared equals a plus root b. So you just expand it, and then you compare it with what you've got. While you're doing that, I'm just going to write out the next question to do. Just checking the answer. This is of the format a minus b all squared, which is equal to a 7 root 2 all squared minus 2 times 7 root 2 times 3 plus b, which is just a 3 squared. So what have we got? 49 times 2 minus 2 times 7 times 3. That's 42 root 2 plus 9. This one's easy. 98 plus 9, 107 minus 42 root 2. So be careful. So therefore, comparing it with a plus b root 2, if this actually equals a plus b root 2, we can say therefore a is what? Comparing the formats. What's a equal to? But what does b equal? Negative 42, not positive 42. It has to be in the format a plus b root 2, so that's plus negative 42. B is negative 42. When you're done, you can try question 5. A, simplify. Got a minus b, a plus b. This is simple. It's just a squared minus b squared. Should be that simple. Which is what? A plus 3. That equals just the square root and the squared cancel, minus 4. And so it's a minus 1. Okay? So recognize it as the form a minus b, a plus b. It's that squared minus that squared. Square root and squared cancel. A plus 3 minus 4 is a minus 1. Questions? Yep. Break them up. So, the square root of 240 minus the square root of 135. I don't know. 240. That's 24 and 10. 4. We know 4 goes into it, leaving 60. And 4 goes in again. I think 16. 16 and what? Square root of 16 times root 15. And let's see if 15 goes into the 135. I think it does. 9 times. So once you've got this square root 15, you try 15 in the other one. Do you know what I mean? Because it ends in 5. So what have you got for square root of 135? Square root of 9 times square root of 15. That's good. So what have we got? 4 root 15 minus 3 root 15, which is 1 root 15 or just root 15. Oh, we're done. So therefore, y equals 15. That one was okay. Just doing another one. Let's just do this one. Question 14. Expand and simplify the following. They actually have their root 5 nice and big. If I were you, you've got two options here. Looks like that. A half minus a half root 5 squared. You might want to write that a half root 5 as root 5 over 2. Do you understand? To keep it a half minus root 5 over 2 squared. Can you see that it's nice and clear now? So what have we got? A squared minus 2 times a times b plus b squared. That's what you say to yourself as you're writing it out. A squared minus 2 times a times b squared. Then you won't make a mistake, hopefully. So what have we got? A quarter. What cancels? The 2's cancel. Minus root 5 over 2 plus, what's root 5 squared? What's 2 squared? Be careful. A quarter, 1 over 4 plus 5 over 4, isn't that 6 over 4? Which is what? That's right, minus root 5. So change your 6 over 4 to 3 over 2 minus root 5 over 2. And because the denominators are the same, you will often see it written as 3 minus root 5 over 2. Okay?